Hi, I'm Dan Kenner, author of the Tirran Tales, and this is Tirran Tale Episode 1, The Adventure Begins. Stephen felt the warmth of the sun on his face. He kept his eyes closed and smiled, letting the heat of the light fill him with happiness. He sat there for only a moment, allowing his mind to wake up and get ready for the day. It was Saturday. That meant he could play with his friends, Mike and Jordan. Their favorite thing to do was imagine all sorts of things in Mike's backyard on his playground. Unable to wait any longer, Stephen jumped out of bed excitedly, rushing to his drawers to put on fresh clothes and head down for breakfast. He looked in the mirror to see his brown hair tousled from sleep, but his blue eyes were bright and awake. As usual, he could hear his mother stirring something in a bowl and clattering around in the kitchen downstairs. Just then, the smell of bacon came through the slightly open door, and he jumped for joy. Yes, 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 we have bacon today! In a flash, he ran down the stairs to see freshly cooked bacon and waffles on the table. I love Saturdays so much, he exclaimed, sitting down at the table. Good morning to you, too, Nancy, his mother said. You know, the only reason I cook breakfast for you on Saturdays is to get you out of bed, right? Stephen was barely listening, though, as he dug into the food and doused it all in syrup. A little hasty now, are we? His father said, coming out of his room in a bathrobe. Morning, Dad. Sorry I didn't wait. I am too excited to see Mike and Jordan, Stephen exclaimed. His mother turned quickly at the words, looking sad. Oh, Stephen, I forgot to tell you. Mike is out of town today. His mother told me just yesterday they'd be out all day. And Jordan came down with something and can't play today either. Stephen's heart fell. Jordan had been absent from school yesterday, but Stephen had hoped it was only a doctor's appointment. What am I supposed to do today, then? He said, feeling sad. Well, how about you use the new shovel we bought you last week? See if you can't dig up something interesting in the patch behind our fence, his father said, pulling out his phone to read the news. Stephen brightened up at the idea. Sure, I might find something super cool. Though he was still sad to not see his friends, Stephen imagined all sorts of things he might dig up. He finished breakfast quickly and rushed out to the garage to grab the shovel. He remembered to grab his gloves as well, so that he didn't hurt his hands while digging. As he walked to the back fence, he imagined digging a hole all the way across the world. Or perhaps he'd find a secret passage to his neighbor's basement. Maybe even a bag full of money. Hardly able to contain his excitement, Stephen hurried behind the fence and picked a spot that looked promising. With some effort, he dug as quickly as he could, shovel after shovel, until he had dug a hole up to his knees. But he found nothing. Stephen was disappointed. He was sure he'd have found something. The only things he'd found were roots and rocks. Those were things he could find on top of the ground. Why bother digging for them? And now he was tired, for no reason. Stephen felt discouraged, but then his imagination started again, and he thought of finding a sword of a fallen warrior so old that it was rusting. That idea made him jump up and dig again. He picked a spot 6 feet from his other hole, and he dug again and again. A flash of color in the ground made him excited. It turned out to be an old water balloon. Oh man, I won't find anything out here, Stephen complained. Finally, he decided to try one more time. He was trying to stay positive and hoped that just one more time of digging would get him something. Stephen dug, sweat now dripping down his neck from the heat. With each shovel coming up with nothing but dirt, he felt more sad and frustrated. Just a little more, he thought. Clunk. Stephen froze. His shovel had hit something. He jumped up and down with a squeal and dug around the object. It took some time, but he was finally able to pull up a wooden chest with straps around the top and brown metal clasps at the opening. "Oh boy, I found some treasure!" he yelled out loud. His excitement was bursting as he grabbed the clasps with his hands and tugged hard. One of the clasps broke free and the other stuck. Stephen tried to push again, but couldn't get it to budge. "Dagnabbit, open up," he growled. He tried over and over, but the clasp would not open. Stephen fell back on his feet to rest. He knew that he could go and ask someone for help, but he wanted to be the first to see what was inside. This could be an amazing discovery. Stephen knew that he couldn't give up. He tried jumping down on it, but that didn't work. He even tried whacking it with a rock, but that didn't work either. Finally, frustrated again, Stephen sat down, ready to cry. Then he remembered how he had almost stopped digging, but tried just one more time. Breathing in, he closed his eyes and tried to think of something he could use. What could he use to help him break open the clasp? Stephen's eyes snapped open and he smiled. "The shovel!" he said out loud. Rushing to the shovel, he grabbed it in his hands and moved to the chest. Putting the edge of the shovel to the clasp, Stephen firmly pushed on the shovel with his foot until he heard the snap of the thin metal. "Yes, I did it!" Stephen shouted, throwing his fist in the air. He sat down and put his hands on either side of the box lid. The thrill of excitement burst in his chest. He wanted to scream out loud, but he kept it inside so he didn't scare his parents. Counting to 3 in his head, he threw the lid of the chest open, then gasped. Bright light exploded from the chest, blinding him as if he was looking at the sun. Stephen fell on his back and closed his eyes, surprised. The light behind his closed eyes faded a bit, and he opened them to look at the chest. A steady, glowing light was coming from inside. Both excitement and fear ran through him as he stared at the open box, the yellow light still coming from inside. Despite being a little scared, Stephen slowly moved to the box and peered in. He had to squint his eyes because of how bright it was up close. When he looked, though, he saw nothing but light. A force tugged on Stephen's body, and he screamed as he was pulled into the box. The air whipped his hair around his head, and he felt himself falling very fast. He yelled some more, and light was the only thing that he could see all around him. Stephen closed his eyes, so afraid of what would happen, when his back ran into something hard and a little prickly. He almost didn't open his eyes, but then he realized that he'd stopped falling. Stephen held out his bare arms and felt grass on his skin. Finally, he looked over and saw he was on some grass under a canopy of trees filtering the sunlight from above. Quickly, he sat up and looked around. Somehow, he was in a forest of trees of all kinds. Trees with yellow leaves, some with red, some with green. Stephen gasped. "That tree has orange leaves, and that one purple." "Who are you?" a voice said behind him. Stephen jumped up and looked around. A girl about his own size and height was standing just behind him. "Whoa, your skin is blue," Stephen said, and it was. Her arms, face, and feet, which were notably bare, were a pale blue, lighter than the sky. She also had sparkly silver hair. She giggled. "Yes, we all are, silly." "What do you mean we all are?" Stephen asked. "I am sure not blue." The girl giggled again. "You must not see colors well then," she said, tilting her head to the side. "What do you mean?" Then Stephen looked at his hand and yelped, "Ah, I'm blue too." "It's how all elves are. That and we have pointed ears." Sure enough, Stephen felt his ears, and they'd become long and pointed. The girls were the same. "When did I become an elf? I am from Earth, and we don't have elves there," Stephen said, confused now. "I don't know of any place called that around here. This is Tirran, where the elves live. You are an elf, so you must be from here." Stephen almost told her that he wasn't an elf once more, but he decided that she wouldn't believe him. He was blue, after all. "I'm Stephen. What is your name?" he asked the girl. "I'm Amethyst. I live in that tree just over there." She pointed a blue finger at a tree that looked very much normal. How do you live in a tree?" Amethyst giggled again. "It's a magic tree, of course. Don't you know that? And what kind of name is Stephen anyway? I have never heard anything like it." Stephen shrugged. "It is a normal name where I come from." "Well, that is that then," she said. For a moment, they stood there and stared at each other, Stephen's shyness taking over. Finally, he thought to ask another question. "These trees here are strange colors. Are they all different kinds of trees?" Amethyst turned and looked around curiously. "No, they are all Quilu trees. They can't really decide what color they want to be. My mother says it has to do with their mood." Stephen narrowed his eyes at her. "Trees don't have moods. They are just plants." "Well, sure, not all trees do, but Quilu ones do for sure. Watch." Amethyst tiptoed up to a tree with vibrant red leaves and a normal brown trunk. Just before she got to it, she jumped forward and yelled what sounded like "Yahoo!" Right as she yelled, the tree turned bright yellow, like the sun, leaves, branches, and trunks alike. Stephen gasped loudly. "Whoa! How did you do that?" Stephen asked. "I scared it. See? It's calming down now." Sure enough, the leaves were turning dark blue while the trunk changed to a light green. Curious now, Stephen reached up and pulled a leaf off a purple tree. Right as he did, its leaves, even the one he held, turned vibrant red while the trunk changed to orange. Stephen yelped and jumped back. "Oh, I wouldn't pull their leaves if I were you. That one is probably mad at you now." Stephen backed away as if the tree might lash out at him. Nothing happened, though. Finally, a smile spread on Stephen's face, and he turned to see what another tree might do. Before long, Stephen and Amethyst were scaring, petting, singing to, and yelling at all the Quilu trees. Stephen was having so much fun that he lost track of time. They'd been out for hours when Amethyst, after having poked a tree for so long that it turned pink and red, finally stopped laughing. "I'm hungry. Would you like to come to my house and get a snack? You can meet my mom, too." "Sure, but how do we get in the tree?" "You'll see," Amethyst said, smiling. The two walked to the edge of the tree where Amethyst put her hand on the normal brown trunk. Then she pushed her hand in where a button was hidden. A door swung open in the narrow trunk. "Whoa, that's cool. But how will we fit in? That's such a small tree." Amethyst just looked at him. "Magic, of course. You really aren't from here, are you? What do you live in then? Caves?" "We just live in houses that we built. No magic needed." That is a strange thing to me," Amethyst said. "Anyway, come meet my mom." As the two walked into the doorway of the tree trunk, Stephen gasped. Once they walked through the door, they came into a big room with cushions and a table and a kitchen. Just next to the kitchen, a set of stairs led upward to what must be another floor. "Wow, this really must be magic. How can this all fit in here?" Stephen asked, looking around more. "Now, who do we have here?" A woman's voice came from the kitchen to the left. Just after they heard her speak, a tall woman with sparkly silver hair and the same blue skin came from the room. "Hi, Mom. This is Stephen. He said he came from a place called Earth or something." Stephen blushed. "Earth. I came from Earth." The woman dropped the spoon she was using for mixing and stared at him as if in shock. After a moment, she composed herself and put a smile on her face. Stephen got the feeling that she was hiding something. "I don't know of such a place, but you are always welcome here in Tirran. My name is Pearl. Are you hungry for some honey bread and sickle juice?" Stephen stared at her. confused even more. I have never had those before, but I guess I'll try some. Stephen and Amethyst sat at the table while Pearl put the food there. Stephen stared at the bread, which was very much green. The liquid in the cup looked like water. Rather than ask how juice could have no color, Stephen just drank some. This is so delicious. How did you make this? It looks like water, but it doesn't taste like it at all. Pearl smiled at him. No sickle juice in this earth place, then? Well, we will be sure to send some with you when you return. A pit formed in Stephen's stomach. How long had he and Amethyst been teasing the trees? It had been hours since he had left home, and he realized that he had no idea how to get back. Are you okay? You look really scared, Amethyst said as she took a bite of green bread. I don't know how to get home. I don't even understand how I got here in the first place. Stephen's lips started to tremble, and tears welled up in his eyes. Pearl came and put her arm on his shoulder. Oh, now, dear, I am sure that we can find out how to get you home. Where did you enter Tirran? From the North Mountains or over the river to the south? I didn't see anything other than grass and trees. I just fell from somewhere and landed on the grassy ground not far from here. My mom will be so worried. Yes, I understand. I would be worried if my Amethyst strayed far from home also. Let's see what we can find. Stephen told them of how he'd found a chest and fallen through only to find himself on the grass. They watched with their bright green eyes, but looked a little confused. I have never heard such a thing before, but I suppose it is good to retrace your path to see if we can find your path home, Pearl said. The three left the house and walked back to where Amethyst found Stephen laying on the ground. I just see trees, Amethyst said, folding her arms. Did you fall from the sky then? They all looked up. I don't know that I'd survive if I fell that far. Well, there sure aren't any doors, and the ground is very hard, Amethyst said as she jumped and stomped on the ground where Stephen had lain. Stephen felt sick. He was so worried that he wouldn't get home that he started to cry again. There, we will find a way for you to get home. Never you worry, Pearl said, patting his back. He didn't know what to do. Then he remembered how he hadn't given up while digging in the patch, and how he hadn't given up when trying to open the chest. Stephen wiped his tears away and stood up straight. We will figure this out, he said. Pearl smiled at him, then nodded. Stephen moved to the grass and laid back down right where he remembered opening his eyes. As he looked up through the canopy, he hoped to get some clue about how to get home, but found none. I don't see any place you may have fallen from. What else do you remember? Pearl asked. I don't really remember anything else. I had my eyes closed because I was scared. A sinking pit formed in his stomach at the thought. How could he close his eyes in a moment like that? He probably could have seen more about where he came from if he just kept his eyes open. Falling isn't that scary to me. I jump into the lake from the waterfall all the time, Amethyst teased. Stephen scowled at her. Please, you two, let's keep looking around. Perhaps we can find something, Pearl said. But Mom, there are only trees. Wait, Stephen said. There are only trees, but you live in a magic tree, so there must be a magic tree. As he said it, he started running to trees and pushing the trunks, hoping to find a button. Tree after tree he pressed, but nothing happened. Pearl and Amethyst helped push on trees around the area. Finally, Stephen tried the tree just next to where he had been laying on the ground. When he pushed it, however, there was no button, but instead he was pulled into the tree. He cried out as everything went dark. Stephen screamed as he fell, light bursting suddenly in the air around him. Then he fell with a bump on his bum. Shaking his head, he was surprised to see the wooden chest in front of him. It was still open, but the light was gone. He jumped up and looked inside, only to find it completely empty. It's gone! Surely he hadn't imagined it. Stephen liked to imagine, sure, but this was so real. He looked at his hand to see that it wasn't blue. Then he felt his ears, and they were round and small like they usually were. Shaking his head in wonder, he closed the lid to the chest and picked it up. I ought to tell my mom that I'm okay. She is probably worried, he thought. Stephen walked into the room to see that his mother was just finishing cleaning up a meal. Are you done already? You've only been out digging for an hour. What? No, I've been out there all day, haven't I? He asked. No, you just went out about an hour ago. What is it that you have there? His mother asked. Before he answered, he thought about how strange it was that time had somehow frozen while he had been in Tirran. Perhaps it was his imagination or just a dream. He focused on his mother again, then answered her. I found this chest. Oh, wonderful. What is in it? Stephen scratched his head, not sure how to answer. Well, nothing, but I think that I will keep it to put some treasures in, Stephen said. Just to make sure it was empty, he opened it and peered inside. Sure enough, no light came out. I am glad that you found something. Was it worth the time? It sure was. I was discouraged more than once, but I kept trying, and finally I found something. Giving up would not have helped me find the chest, get it open, or find my way home. What? Find your way home? You were just out back. I could see you, his mother said. Never mind. I was just imagining something. I'm going to put this under my bed. That sounds like a great place for it, Nancy replied. Stephen went straight to his room and put the box under his bed. He peeked inside just once more before closing it. Right as the lid closed, he saw a flash of light through the thin crack. But when he whipped it open again, it faded instantly. He sighed and stood up to find something else to do. I don't know what happened, but I am sure glad I didn't give up. What an adventure I had today, Stephen thought, smiling to himself. Perhaps the chest would provide more adventures another day.